Hi, and welcome back to the CAT Tutor. Today we will be looking at Chapter 9, Networking Concepts. In this section, we will be looking at lots and lots of stuff network. Their purpose, types, the internet itself, their commonalities, devices of networks, other terminology about networks, threats in networks, security issues, and social implications. Purpose of a network. A network is a connection of computers and computer devices like phones, tablets, notebooks, etc. through a wired or wireless connection for the purpose of communication and sharing resources. There are quite a few types of networks. Now, networks are defined by two different categories: the medium, through which the communication happens, and the protocols put in place. The medium directly influences the coverage area, and that's why the coverage area was not mentioned as one of the categories. There is a list of different networks, but we will be focusing on the following: PAN, HAN, LAN, WLAN, WAN, and as a bonus we will also be looking at GAN. PAN, Personal Area Network. A PAN is the most basic and smallest of the networks. It refers to when wireless modem, a computer or two, phones, printers, tablets, etc. gets connected. It revolves around one person, specifically one person in one building. We find these types of networks are typically in small offices or residences. It's basically at work or at home, more likely at home, and are managed by one person or organization from a single device. As you can see in the sketch, next to the text, there's a good example. If you take your phone and you connect it to your computer, which is not connected to another network, it becomes a personal area network. The advantage of a PAN is that it uses very little space. The wires that are used during communication are often included when you purchase your devices. It is easy to connect a few devices. It is affordable. It is quite easy to use. It is very much secure. But the disadvantages would be that it interferes with and is interfered by radio signals. Any radio signals, if you are wirelessly connected to your computer, there will be interruptions. And also the same signals can start leading to health problems. If you are permanently stuck in your personal little network, then the sheer amount of blue light that you will constantly be looking through at your PC's monitor, for example, or at your cell phone, or even a TV, it can eventually start leading to health problems. This is why many people, and yes, this is an actual thing. This was not made up by your 60-year-old grandparent of a professor giving you, I don't know what subject. This was actually not made up. Your cell phone emits radiation. Yes, now everybody's going to be like, oh, radiation, oh no! But believe it or not, there are many forms of radiation. Cell phones emit one of them. This is why it is not recommended that you ever place your cell phone in breast pockets or any other devices or any other pockets on your person. Yes, I understand you don't want to lose it, you don't want to have it stolen, the whole 9 yards, but it is not advised to put your cell phone in your breast pocket because it can lead to forms of cancer. A HAN, which is a slightly bigger network than a PAN, normally covers a single home or office. Now, you would find this more commonly in houses. All the nodes or computer devices can communicate with each other. This can be wired or wireless. Same with a PAN. PANs can also be wired or wireless. Now, home area networks. One thing that you must understand is that it is only for that single house. Depending on how large the area is, this can turn into a LAN very quickly. The advantages of a HAN would be that it is quite easy to manage and secure. Resources are shared very easily in the system, and multi-user use of this resource sharing is also made easy. Disadvantages would include you do require a bit of security now. You've reached a point where some other people might be able to start accessing your network. Therefore, you do require passwords and other forms of security. It does become relatively expensive, but not as expensive as other networks. That brings us to LAN, local area networks. These networks connect groups of computers and devices together across short distances, a building or maybe 3 buildings close to each other, to share information and resources. If LAN is only in one building, then depending on how many devices are connected to it and how large this building is, it can either be declared a HAN or a LAN. The advantages of a LAN, once again, sharing resources, but also sharing access to the internet, software program sharing, and the securing of data. Keep in mind, now you have many more devices connected in one system, so you are easily able to back up your files onto a different drive on a different computer in the same network. Yeah, communication is easy, fast, and time-saving. Computer identification. The second you are in a LAN, each computer and computer device will be allocated what is called an IP address. All of your devices will basically get it, just like each house on a block has its own address. In this street, in this place, in this spot, that is your address. Same story with your devices in your network. Each of them will be assigned a little address so that the network won't be confusing two devices when it sends out data. This is how your switches know, okay, let's send this data to this person, let's send this data to this person. Same goes for servers. Disadvantages, however, is that data security starts becoming a problem. The bigger your network becomes, the more easily it becomes a risk. Keep in mind, now the area, let's say for example you have a wireless network. It becomes much more easy for people around you to start hacking into this network the larger it becomes, because now they don't have to sit literally outside of your door to get access to your system. Now they can sit across the street and get access to it. So be careful. That is why there is different networks to choose from. Always make sure that you choose the right one suited to your needs. The limitation of distance. Yes, a LAN is bigger than a HAN, but it's not as big as a WAN, a wide area network. The limitation of distance in a LAN can start becoming a problem. If you were to say host a large event for a gaming community, if you hosted this large event, then you couldn't exactly just bring them all to your house and go sit there and do everything. Yeah, maybe if it was just a few people, but several hundred, it's not going to work out so well. Server crashes may affect all computers. If you have a centralized system where all of your access to the internet goes through this exact server and that server crashes, then all of the computers and devices will lose access. Same goes for file sharing, same goes for device sharing, hardware sharing. Any resource that is shared via a single computer, otherwise known as a server, if that server crashes, you may no longer have access to any of the data or hardware or connections or any other resource. It can and it will affect all devices connected to it. It is for this reason that some people use a different network connection known as peer-to-peer instead of server-client. But that is a problem for another day. Setting up a LAN is expensive. Not maybe, it is. If you go wireless, it becomes even more so. Network types wireless LAN. It's a LAN but wireless, hence the W in WLAN, wireless local area network. It's really just as simple as that. There's nothing complicated about it. It's literally just a LAN wireless. Advantage, no cables. There's more space. It's easy to connect devices to a wireless system. Think about it. If you had a switch and all of the slots were used, you'd first need to go get another switch and attach it to that one so that more cables can be added. It's long-winded and terrible and ugh. That is why it is quite much a freaking huge advantage that you have a wireless LAN. It's easy to connect devices. It's very portable. You can take your modem, just move it around a little bit. Yeah, maybe a few of your people will get kicked out of their gaming online, but it's much easier to move around than a wired system. Disadvantages, however, it is quite a bit more expensive to set up. You do get signal interference. Even heavy rainstorms can interfere with your connections. The more devices you connect to the system, the slower the network becomes. Keep in mind, all of your signals now have to sort themselves out. It's quite a mess. And also, there can be compatibility issues. Not all devices are set up to connect wirelessly. WAN. This type of network is your most complex network. Well, for now. Bum bum bum. It connects computers, otherwise known as nodes, together across great distances. This allows various nodes to be remotely connected to each other over one large network to communicate even when they're kilometers, miles and miles and miles apart. It's a really, really big network. The internet being the most common WAN. Bonus! A GAN. Okay, fair enough. Not all people want to acknowledge this one. But once a WAN has become, well, global, once a WAN is big enough to cover about the entirety of the planet, it can also be classified as a GAN, a global area network. The internet is such a GAN. Advantages of WAN would be the centralizing of IT infrastructure. Keep in mind, if it's just you and your little party over here with your computers and data and backups and all nine yards, okay, fair and well. But if you want to start sharing your stuff large scale or start gaming online professionally, then you really need a pretty hefty infrastructure. And that infrastructure is provided to you with a WAN. You also eliminate the need for ISDNs. Now, not all of you, maybe some, but not all of you will know what an ISDN is. Remember in those old movies, well, maybe not old movies, you do get some of them that's still around. But in some movies you will have seen a person makes a call, but then for some obscure reason, this call first goes to a group and then he has to tell them who to put the call through to. Well, that is what's known as ISDN. It's your circuit switchboard for your telephone companies. Now, these switchboards, they do still exist, but they aren't used as commonly. Not anymore. More efficient ways of doing things have been brought out, but they are still in use for some other reasons. WANs cut costs and increase profits. I don't care who you are, this is true. It does cut costs. You are able to access software that you don't have. You are able to access hardware that you don't have. You are able to access resources that you wouldn't have gotten in a million years otherwise. You are able to collaborate across great distances. You are able to do things 24/7. You are able to communicate with people 24/7. This is all things that save costs. You are able to cut down on travel costs. You are able to cut down on many other things. Therefore, it does indeed cut costs and increase profits. Resource sharing over large distances. Like before mentioned, you are able to share resources over immensely large differences, even across the entire planet. Disadvantages, however, are that a WAN is extremely expensive, both to set up and maintain. There are quite a few security concerns. Like I mentioned before, that the bigger a network is, the more easy it is to hack into it. This is a concern. This is a global concern, because hacking is a global problem. Yes, in some cases it's used for good, but in most cases, not really. Not that much. Nope, sorry. Can't convince me otherwise. Maintenance issue is also a very large problem. Keep in mind, they can't just go switch their servers off, give them time to cool down, and then put them back on. Think about the anarchy that would be caused amongst the populace. Everybody would be like, where's my internet? It's horrible. I want to watch 50 Shades or something. It's terrible. It's horrible. Therefore, maintenance can be quite a bit of a problem when it comes to network types. And I mean quite a bit. Vulnerable to internet attacks. Once again, large area, easily hacked. But let's say, for argument's sake, that somehow you have a foolproof system that can't be hacked. There's one additional problem. Internet attacks do not always need the hacker to hack your system. A lot of hackers go and they take control of a bunch of computers. And I mean a bunch of them. This will be handled in depth in future videos, as well as in grades 11 and 12. This will be handled in detail, but they can control other computers and PCs remotely. And then what they do is all of these computers at the same time, and I'm talking not a handful of them, I'm talking about hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of computers. They take them all, send out a single message to them saying, access this site now. Because of the fact that those thousands and thousands and thousands of computers access this site at the same time, it sends a message to the site saying, hey, I want your resources, show me your stuff. And because of this, think about it as an entire truckload of paperwork that suddenly gets dumped on your lap. You go on strike. This is what the server does. The server that provides this website connection, it says, nope, sorry pal, I'm going on vacation, I'm going to do this some other time. Nope, sorry, all of you other people go away, I don't even want to deal with you, I don't want to see you anymore, nothing. This is what happens. This is known as a DDoS attack. The person did not have to hack the system. All they had to do was overload it. This is why processing power, sheer processing power, is also a very big problem when it comes to WANs. The internet. The internet, as before mentioned, is the most common example of a WAN. It stretches over great distances with billions and billions of devices connected to it across the world. Remember, the internet is a network made up of networks, hence the word internet. What all networks have in common, though, yeah, all of them have their own individual purposes, but they all have a common goal. They connect people from across the world, and they grant access to hardware and software that we otherwise wouldn't have. Network devices. Here is the biggest problem amongst them all. Nobody knows the difference. Switches. They connect several computers to the same network, as shown in the diagram. Modems connect the computers in the network to the internet, as shown in the diagram. Routers, on the other hand, they can organize and route data from a network to the internet, in which case they would technically be a modem, whilst connecting many computers in the network to each other, almost like a switch. You can see the router is almost a combination between the switch and the modem. It is very important to know the difference between these three components. Switches and modems are used together or not at all together. They can be replaced by a router. But let's see. Why would you want to really connect a router to a modem? Really? A router kind of does the modem's job as well. You don't need that. So you can see how you can get suckered by some people in internet cafes, or not internet cafes, but internet shops, the suppliers of the hardware. They can go and they can say, no, but you want to buy this and this and this and this, and then they're going to cheat you out of a bunch of bucks. If you remember the difference between a switch, a modem, and a router, you can say, but why do I want that when I can just take this and voila, all my problems are solved, and it's cheaper. Okay, so always beware of the difference between a switch, modem, and a router. It might come in handy in the future. Other terminology of networks. Access points. Devices through which to connect to the network. These would be your routers and modems. A node, on the other hand, as before mentioned, is more like the computer. It is the device connecting to the network. This could be a cell phone, a tablet, a PC, a netbook, a notebook, an ultrabook, anything that connects to the network. ISP, or Internet Service Provider. An Internet Service Provider is a company or group that has access to a stable internet connection. It is theirs, not yours, it is theirs. They feel nice enough to share it with you for a monthly fee. Bum, bum, bum. Other terminology, and so it continues. Network server. This is the provider of the network services. This can include internet service, hardware sharing, file storage, anything. Network client. This is the user of said network services. Threats. Just as all networks have things in common, they also have common threats. All networks have three weaknesses. Malware spreads through a network like a 6-year-old goes through candy. The larger the network, the more vulnerable it is. Limited processing power can lead to internet attacks. As I mentioned while explaining WAN, limited processing power can make you vulnerable to internet attacks. The more processing power your server has and the more bandwidth it has to handle more traffic, the less likely it is to fall victim to an internet attack like a DDoS attack. These threats will be thoroughly handled in future videos, so don't worry if you're not quite sure what I'm talking about just yet. Network security. There are quite a few defense measures against these threats. Firewalls, antivirus software, anti-spyware software, even good password policies. Each of these play a vital role in protecting your computer and system against attacks, malware, and many other threats. Remember, there is a very big difference between a firewall and an antivirus. An antivirus is there to protect you from malware. A firewall is there. It's basically the traffic cop of the cyber network. It sits at the edge of your computer saying to all of your programs, okay, you're allowed to use the internet. I don't like it. No, you're not allowed to use the network. Okay, you're allowed to use the network. And every now and then it also turns around and all the inflowing information says, you look a little bit suspicious. No, go away. Go back to your network hub. Sorry, pal. Go away. Okay, you look safe. Okay, your adware, go away. All of that is done by your firewall. Your firewall determines which programs are allowed to access the internet and what is allowed to come off of the internet into your computer. Antivirus is for malware only. It cannot do this. Anti-spyware is just a smaller version of the antivirus. Anti-spyware is specifically there to only look for forms of spyware. An antivirus, which includes anti-spyware software, an antivirus looks for all forms of malware. Both need to be constantly updated to make sure that they have the latest versions of viruses, their identities, everything, so that they can pick them up. Good password policies are simply there to make sure that your good old neighbor doesn't hack your Wi-Fi. Social implications. Now, many of you, well, maybe not that many, but some of you will have noticed that whenever you go into a workplace, or sometimes even schools or universities or any other place, whenever you're allowed to access a computer, most often you are supposed to sign what is called an AUP, an acceptable use policy, before they allow you to use their computers. This is to avoid any malware entering their system and avoid their system from being flagged for visiting sites that are, well, morally questionable. What you want to do in your time is your business. Just leave them out of it. It is also to control the flow of network traffic. If everybody in a company climbed on YouTube at the same time, their entire system would just die. It's horrible. Plus, if you messed around on YouTube the whole time, you wouldn't really get any work done, now would you? This policy that you sign will include the rules and restrictions of the computer's use, as well as the punishments if those rules should be ignored. Now, this is something to be careful of. Sharing resources is the purpose of a network, but sharing pirated or proprietary software is illegal. You can be fined, arrested, and even jailed for committing the offense. Be careful what you share, who you share it with, and whether you're allowed to share it at all. Also, never download pirated software or any other software that you know needs a license or any other permissions to use. We easily use online sources for our own research purposes. This is, however, not allowed. The copying of other people's work and presenting it as your own is known as plagiarism. This is very much prohibited. If you are ever caught doing this in assignments, you will be expelled in certain cases and be banned from taking part in any further assignments. Fun fact, if you are caught plagiarizing at universities in South Africa, you are immediately expelled and you are banned from all universities on the African continent for 3 years. I kid you not, for 3 years, not only all South African universities, but all African universities. Every single university on Africa, even any good and proper university anywhere else in the world, will simply give your file one look and say, the second you plagiarize in an assignment and they have proof that you plagiarized, your name goes onto a list of names that is banned from all universities for a time period of 3 years. It is not worth it, people. Never plagiarize. Even in school, if you plagiarize, you immediately get expelled, and not only from your school, but all schools in the area or even in the country. To my knowledge, if you plagiarize in an exam on high school level, you not only immediately get 0 for your exam, but you also lose the rights and privileges to write the exams any further for the next 3 years. In other words, you have to wait 3 years to continue school. I mean, for Pete's sakes, it's school. Just get it over with. Really, man, do you want to sit there for 3 more years just because you were too lazy to go study? It is not worth it, ever. And this is not only in education systems, this is also in the professional world. If you are ever caught using somebody else's work, not only will you be discredited, but in certain industries you will be disbarred, in certain industries you will be fined or arrested, in certain industries you lose your job, in certain other industries you plain and simply just lose all credibility, and you will never be able to work in those industries again. Because those who have done it once, how do you know that they won't simply do it again? Never risk it. That brings us to the end of today's video. Thank you very much for watching. I really hope that this helped. Don't forget to subscribe and enjoy your week.